Well, welcome to the second IoT webinar. This is David Tyler from the World LPG Association. And on the line also, I've got Andre Pimentel from ISA. And Andre and I will just give a little brief introduction to this topic. And we have a couple of slide packs to show you, and both of them will be available afterwards. So we'll make sure that you get copies of those. And the other thing to tell you is that the whole webinar will be recorded, as was the one we had earlier today. And we'll send you the link to the full recording so that if you miss anything, you can go back and pick it up. So for those of you joining a webinar for the first time, I just wanted to point out that in the little control panel that you see on the right-hand side there, down on the bottom, there's a little line with questions on it and a little triangle. If you click on the triangle, you can then ask a question below that in that blank section. And you can either send that to us, or you can send it to everybody. It will be preferable if you send it to everybody, and then everybody can see the conversation that's going on. That was the first thing. And the second thing is that in the attendee list, again, there's a little triangle there. If you click on that, you'll see all the people who are currently registered and have joined us. So we've got 24 attendees at the moment, which is a similar sort of number to what we had this morning. And we had a few little hiccups this morning, but we managed to overcome them. And it turned out to be a very lively discussion. So I hope we can repeat that today. If you want to ask or intervene with a comment, you'll see along the top of row, just underneath the word attendees, you'll see a little hand. And if you put the cursor over the top of that, you'll see it says raised hand. So click on that, and then you'll let us know that you want to say something, and then we can unmute you, and then you can make a contribution. But at the moment, everybody who's attending the webinar is on mute. So that's so that we can give our presentation without being interrupted by you. But if you want to say something, then please put your hand up or ask a question, and then we'll pick those questions up as we go through.
David, sorry,
yeah,
we have a hand up from Ian. So good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. We have Ian Ultram. He raised his hand. Let me unmute. Ian. Ian?
You need to unmute him?
Yeah, it's unmuted. Ian, hi. You raise your hand?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
I'm sorry, I did that in error. I do apologize.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
It's
just to prove it, it's working, so it's good.
That's great. No, we had a problem this morning. We weren't quite sure if anybody could hear us, so I said, look, I said, if you can hear me, just send me a little message. And I had about 23 messages coming through saying, yes, we can hear you loud and clear. But at least it got everybody working with the keyboard. So we'll work through this as we go through. And if it all goes wrong your end, then please just send us a little message, and then we can try and restore order. Okay, so what I wanted to do first of all is to just set the scene and give a little bit of background as to why we're doing this program, and also to introduce somebody on the list who I see is already registered, and that's Mauricio Jarowski from Ultragas. He joined earlier on. I hope he's still there. Mauricio is the chairman of the WLPGA working group on standards, which includes the IoT project. So WLPGA, who are we? Well, for those of you who don't know us, we're an association, a trade association, if you like, for the LPG industry. and we have nearly 275 members now, and almost half of them are in the Asia Pacific region. The team in the WLPGA, if you don't know all of us, we're all based in France, in Paris, except for me. I'm actually based in Australia on the West Coast, which is where I am right now. Andre is with ISA. He's based in Portugal. And Cami, the other person on our team who's involved tonight or today, is in Paris. One of the reasons I'm in Australia is that nearly half of that 275 odd member list are in the Asia Pacific region. So it makes it very easy for me to make contact with almost half of our membership. Our members include producers, major producers in the US, for example, like Targa, and then the major shipping companies, BWLPG. We have Epic Gas, we have Dorian as members. We also have very large LPG distributors like Ultragas, as I mentioned, and Repsol, and UGI and SHV. UGI were on the call earlier this morning with the first webinar we had. And then we move through the storage and handling and distribution channel with equipment manufacturers and appliance manufacturers all the way through to the consumer. So we're fully covering the whole value chain of the LPG business, and all our members operate in about 120 countries. We have a vision which is reviewed every 3 years, and the current vision is this, which is to promote the use of LPG to foster a safer, cleaner, healthier, and more prosperous world. Underneath that vision is we have 4 mission goals. The 4 mission goals are the one at the top there, market development. I mean, clearly we want to improve the development of the LPG markets around the world. We have on the left-hand side standards. This is all about creating a level playing field for LPG businesses wherever they operate. So we have programs like our Good Industry Practice program, where we produce guides and guidelines, and we run workshops, and we have training material and so forth to help organizations, governments, to create that level playing field so that investors are encouraged to come in. On the right-hand side, we have communications, and this is where we have a tremendous library of material that's available on our website, and you can easily access that even if you're not a member. And then down the bottom, we have what we call innovation and knowledge transfer. And included in that is our annual Global Technology Conference, where we showcase some of the latest technology in the world of LPG. And knowledge transfer is where we have our training initiatives. So IoT, Internet of Things, would probably neatly cover standards and innovation and knowledge transfer. Although, as you'll hear later on as we go into this webinar, some of the IoT initiatives are indeed helping to develop the market, particularly in those countries where people are burning traditional fuels and they cannot afford to buy LPG in the current business model. So there's some very, very exciting IoT initiatives to help break down those barriers. So that's basically what we're all about. Just quickly, for those of you on the panel there who are not too familiar with LPG, it is a fossil fuel. We're branded a fossil fuel, unfortunately, but we like to call ourselves 5-star fossil fuel. We have a very, very low carbon footprint, and we see ourselves, one of our roles is to displace those higher carbon fuels, those fuels with a higher carbon footprint, such as fuel oil and diesel. So whenever we talk to policymakers, we say, yes, we're fossil, but we're 5-star fossil. The benefits of LPG, I think most people know, it's portable. It can be taken to the most remote places on Earth where there is no access to modern energy. It's a very powerful fuel. It has a very hot flame. It's versatile. We have hundreds of different applications for LPG, not just for cooking, where probably half of it goes, but we have applications like power generation, and also, of course, it's a fantastic automotive fuel. So we have something like 26, 27 million vehicles running around on LPG today globally. So a very, very good engine fuel and a very, very, very good burning fuel. It's clean, as I mentioned, and although it's seen as a gap or a bridging fuel, there is an abundance of LPG supplies at the moment, such that there's going to be a surplus of supply over demand for the foreseeable future, well into the late 2020s, and probably out beyond 2030. So the message really is that there's plenty of LPG around, and if we're looking at new initiatives for using LPG, we should not be worried about it running out anytime soon. Now, that background of LPG is against another background, which is nearly half the world's population have no access to modern energy, and LPG is a real solution to that problem. And as you'll hear later on, the challenge that we have as an industry is that LPG and the access to LPG demands a degree of finance, such as buying the cylinder, the valve, the regulator, the hose, and the stove. And for some of the people in this photo, it's beyond reach. But there are solutions out there to tackle that, and that's what we're hoping to discuss a little bit today. The other thing is, once we get this traditional fuel back into these kitchens, you can see that the pollution that you get from burning wood is very, very bad for people's health. A lot of respiratory problems occur because of people are burning coal and wood, particularly wet wood or damp coal. And the opportunity to move away from traditional fuels creates enormous benefits, not only in deforestation and the environment, but also in people's health and welfare. So just moving now into the IoT space, it was interesting to reflect the other week in our Houston event, the World LPG Forum. It was just 10 years ago. I think smartphones were actually invented in 2007, but it was only the rich and famous that could actually get their hands on one. So in the early days of 2008, everybody was walking around with mobile phones and Blackberries, and the smartphone really didn't have any presence, or tablets have any presence at all, which is remarkable when you think that it was just 10 years ago. And now the estimate is it's well over 1 billion of these iPhones and tablets are in circulation, and it's just climbing exponentially, as Andre will explain a little bit later. So the two questions that we've been asking with this project that we're running within the WLPGA is, what is out there in this whole IoT space? I mean, a tremendous amount of developments occurred in the last 10 years, and goodness knows where we're going to be in 10 years' time. So we felt that it was useful, particularly as Andre, who has a telecommunications background, he said to us earlier in the year, he said, look, in my estimation, the LPG industry is probably 10 years behind the telecommunications industry when it comes to IoT. So there's an opportunity there that we need to try and bridge that gap. So the two questions were, what's going on out there, and let's continually keep an eye on what's going on out there. And then the second question is, how can that, whatever it is that's going on out there, how can that be applied to the LPG business in order to make it safer and smarter and more efficient? So these were the two questions that the project addressed. And this is an indication of how communications have developed over the last 15 years. 15 years ago, we had the direct phone line, and that allowed us to telephone our clients. And then we moved to the cellular network, And as we did that, the costs of communications came down. And then now we're in this IoT area, and the cost of communicating with IoT is incredibly low compared to what it was 15 years ago. So where we are with the report, we had a working group that was established, and this working group has been communicating with each other. We agreed a scope in terms of reference of the project. A draft was distributed amongst the working group in July, and we always had this intent of publishing this report this year. And we've actually delayed the publication of the report because things are happening all the time. And one of the things that happened was in Houston at the World LPG Forum, we held a power play event about IoT. And we had around 60 people in a room, closeted in a room, and there was an intense period of brainstorming and discussion on those two questions that I raised earlier. And it was an extremely useful event because we had some great ideas that came out of that. And some of those ideas have been fed back into the draft report. We're now in November, and we decided to run a couple of webinars, and that's what we're doing right now. We had one earlier today, and we had, I think we had fewer people. Currently we have 35 people online. I think we had 25 people this morning. And I don't think any of the ones that were on this morning are joining us this afternoon or this evening here in Australia. So over 60 people have participated today in these webinars. And we had some really good, interesting points come out of the first one, and I hope we'll have a similar feedback from everybody online today, right now. And then that will all be fed into the report, which we hope to publish by the end of the year. So two key deliverables that we're hoping to get from this discussion this evening, this afternoon, or this morning, wherever you are, is to get examples of where you have IoT applications in your business, and then to see whether we could actually create case studies where we can put those into the report. And the purpose of all that is so that when people pick the report up, they will do two things. They'll hopefully be a little bit more educated about what IoT is, and secondly, they will see some examples which are being used in the real examples that are being used in the LPG industry that make people say, that's interesting, I hadn't thought of that, or I didn't know that, or that's given me an idea to do something else. And that's the sort of thing that we would hope to get from the discussions over the next hour. So I'm going to stop there and pause, because I'm now going to look at my little question tag to see whether anybody's asked any questions, and I think Andre's been keeping an eye on that as well. And Andre, do we have anything, or shall I hand it over to you now?
As you wish, David. I'm just looking into the attendees. I see that Daniel Buxa, he has a raised hand. So I'm going to unmute Daniel, just in case he has a question. Daniel, are you there? Daniel? I don't think so. So I'm going to raise down the hand, and if he may raise up the hand again, if so. So if there are no questions, as I'm seeing, yes, you can shoot I can push the presentation on my side.
Oh, I've got a few comments here. Mauricio is acknowledging the fact that he's online. Good morning, Mauricio, to you. I can let me unmute you, and then I can speak to you, and you can say something back. So good morning to you in Brazil.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here with you, sharing information and knowledge. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Mauricio. And somebody else I want to say hello to is, if I can find him on my list, is Fausto. Where are you, Fausto? I can unmute you. Okay, you've got the microphone.
Hi, David. Hi, Andre. It's good to join in.
Hi, Fausto. Hi.
We might ask you to come in later on, Fausto, so you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Nairobi.
Sure, no problem.
And the other comment I got here is from Laddie, who says, "I can hear you loud and clear." Laddie, you've got the microphone. Do you want to say hello? From Nigeria.
Let's continue to manage.
No.
Yeah,
okay. Well, can you hear us? Yeah. Okay. I've got a little message that says hello. He can hear us clearly. I was in Nigeria in July, so good to have you on board. So, Andre, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give you the microphone, and then you can give your presentation.
Sure. So let me just. Can you see my screen, David?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay. Let me just. I see Jay Prakash Pandey from Indian Oil. He's also raising his hand. So let me put Jay in the line. Okay. I don't think he has a microphone. Anyway, moving on. So it's.
Can you make your presentation full page?
Isn't it full page?
Not yet.
Okay. So let me.
Go back to the first one.
Is it full page now?
No, not yet. Not yet. I can see it, but if you can get it on full page, that might be better.
Sure. Let me just unshare and share it again. Can you see it full page?
No, but don't worry. It's okay. It's clear. That's better. That's better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So thank you all for being present in this IoT. My name is Andre Pimentel, as David presented. We have been working jointly with David in the IoT steering committee, and we are developing this WLPGA IoT report, and it's very important not only to have kind of theoretical, but also giving concrete cases and success cases of IoT. And I would say that we would define success if you can get feedback from you regarding IoT applications, what you have seen. How can you do it? How would you see IoT being working on your business, whatever it is? So it would be important to gather this feedback so that we can build a more realistic and practical case studies. Moving into the presentation. So it's a short presentation. First of IoT, a bit of barriers to adoption on IoT, and a few cases from ISA in tank monitoring. So, starting with the Internet of Things. What is Internet of Things? And there are a couple of definitions. So we elected this one from IBM, which refers to the growing range of devices that are connected to the internet that generate a huge amount of data. So having these devices on endpoints generating data, having platforms to transform this data into information so you can make better business decisions, and in the end of the day, it will help you to make better or more informed decisions. Google gives a very similar definition. So it's a proposed development of the internet in which everyday objects have network connectivity, allowing them to send and receive data. And so it's a bit about making all the endpoints that we have and all the devices to be connected, so that they can send information, everything connected. And this would present the IoT has something that generates a huge amount of data. And if you look at IoT globally, IoT is kind of a buzzword, but if the Internet of Things is all these connected devices that generate a huge amount of data, cloud computing would be the pathway of this data to reach its destination. So we will have IoT, then we have cloud computing coming from gathering all this information and smashing all the data into information. This is actually the most actionable inputs that would come from IoT. On the growth of IoT, Cisco made this research a few years ago, and it's impressive to see that in 2005 we were 6.3 people in the world, while we had 500 million connected devices. This is just in 2005, so before iPhone and the smartphones, there were already 500 million connected devices, and this would include obviously computers. But today the forecast is that in 2020 there will be 7.6 billion people in the planet and 50 billion devices connected to the internet, generating data. This justifies a bit what the telecommunication networks and others are working towards, making infrastructures ready for these kind of devices. It's devices that they connect, not like our phone, not like our mobile phone or our computer, but it connects maybe with a different frequency, and it transmits a short amount of data. And so they have some specific requirements, and new networks, new telecommunication networks, for instance, are coming on to the world to support these kind of things. So it's really massive to see how this is changing the world, and definitely will be changing LPG, so we believe, LPG industry. On the challenges to adoption, so Morgan Stanley conducted a study with more than 100 executives from industrial businesses. And the challenges, the first challenge to adoptions is security. So security on a 46%, it is a concern, and this pretty much blocks the adoption of IoT. And I believe that it's something that is growing and growing. For instance, in California this year, it was the first first country and first state in the US that proposed a bill with security demands that for all connected devices after 2020. So all the business owners, they are obviously concerned with their security when the data is transmitted, if the data that it is transmitted is correct, if there is no hacking that can control all the devices that you have on the field. And for sure, this is concern number one. But more and more, I think we are, the IoT community, so to speak, it's being very sensitive to this topic, and new protocols and standards are rising regarding the security. Second, it's lack of standardization. So when you talk about IoT, it's dozens, thousands, maybe millions of devices and brands. And we were talking today that CES, which is the biggest global show of consumer devices, it's in Vegas in January every year. Every year they have massive new things that are generating data to the internet. IoT, it can be a connected bike, a connected tire, the cars, pens, sweatshirts, shoes. Everything is connected to the internet. And so when you look into a business and you want to standardize this, so just in LPG industry, I can name it right now at least 15 companies that have connected devices. You see, as a user or as a technology adopter, it would be difficult, to standardize these, to have one place, one source of information, everything would be standardized. So this is obviously an issue, and more and more there are coming standards for, not specifically for the LPG, but for IoT standardization. There are working groups, IETF and other bodies that are looking into adapting and standardizing this information exchange. Secondly, or thirdly, it would be legacy installed base. So on the legacy equipment, so either equipments that were not made in the smart era, so to speak. So how can we connect this to, you know, a new machine, an old machine, without making a huge investment? It would be also to, you know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, most of the devices in the LPG, they were connected by power line. So they were not, the use of mobile networks was not that intense, and so power line was used with all the issues that it brought. And so how to adapt all the investments that were made 10 years ago, all the machines that are not smart ready, so to speak, and how to integrate this. So the complexity of making this, it's something that keeps you know, adopters from IoT. And I think that this report from WLPGA will demystify some things and show a bit that it is easy and the benefits are at our reach. On the 5th, it is the significant upfront of investments. So this 30% of these 100 executives, they believe that significant upfront investments is the issue for IoT adoption. I was kind of, when you look into IoT projects, most of them, you typically don't start with, you know, a huge amount of devices. And we'll see a case that I'll show you. But you start with a few dozen, probably, you know, just prove the concept, see if it makes sense, if the economics make right, you measure how the project, you define the business goals, and then you iterate. That's typically how you approach a project like this, like IoT. It has an investment, it does not need to be upfront. You know, there are some leasing models. So I think more and more, and this Morgan Stanley study has a few years as well. So more and more I see that the business models are changing, and you know, it's not I don't tend to believe that it's not an issue, so big issue anymore. On the 5th, it's return on investment, and I was very surprised to see this as 5th. I would say this would be number 1. I mean, it does not matter if it costs $1 or $1,000. It depends on what you get from it. So the return on investment, it's something that needs to be evaluated, of course. So as I was saying before, it is very important to set business goals, to see how the technology can work for you, and how you can get the most out of it. I'm a firm believer that there are massive number of untapped opportunities in the LPG industry. I tend to say what David said, that we are, I mean, LPG industry, we are 10 years behind digital advertising industry or telecommunications industry when it comes to adoption, this kind of technology. I mean, I don't believe the oil and gas industry in general are, you know, early adopters. But I think it's, personally, I believe that we are on the verge of, you know, making this happen. And there are a lot of innovative companies, of course. I think we can push this forward, and it is very interesting to see the force that is being made now. So happy to be part of it. Data integrity would be the last one of these 6 reasons. And it's obviously to be sure, and I think this applies to all informatic IT systems. It's to be sure that the data that we have, it's accurate and correct. So we'll be taking decisions, or we'll be looking into data that is accurate. So obviously, it's very important. Moving forward and talking a bit about our success case. So ISA, we have tank monitors. So this would be the most detailed success case I could personally share. But remember, what we are asking here is for you to share your cases, to share your views, to, you know, tell us the products you have, what we have done, which companies, because it's very important to have all this information in the report. We want to make it as rich as possible with the practical approach. On the tank telemetry, we have made a project with Rainville, so it's one of the biggest LPG retailers in Quebec, Canada. And so they approached us because they understood that they wanted to optimize their logistics and operations. And so we obviously worked with them. We elected 30 tanks, so 30 tanks, not huge upfront investment. And we monitored, so we knew the data before the 3 months of piloting. We know the data of the 3 months of piloting, and we compared, and the results were outstanding. So on DIP, and so DIP indicates the tank level before delivery. So on the black line, you can see before ISA tank monitoring, and you can see that it went up and down. So sometimes they went to fill up and the tank was at 60%. Sometimes they went to fill up and the tank was dry. So they did not have a clue of what was the level of gas that was inside the tank. And once you start monitoring with the tank monitor, they have a reduction on dip on the gas level by 30%. So it became much more prediction. They could know with real data that what was the level, if they should be filling, if they should not be filling. So it's the business decisions improved a lot of things, and we are going to cover a bit all of them. On the other side, it's the amount of gas that they dropped on each delivery. So again, if you have the full tank, if you have an empty tank, you will put 80% probably, or 85% of gas. If you have 60%, probably leave 10%. So the more efficient this is, the more efficient the operations and more profit the companies make. So what Rainville realizes is that by knowing by knowing the tank level, they could optimize better the amount of their deliveries, and the drop increased 34%. So this is just examples of how the tank monitor could help an LPG customer to optimize their operations and logistics. And if you look into the numbers, I mean, on this, in this through the duration of this proof of concept, the total number of deliveries increased 49%, while the number of deliveries decreased 18%. So they delivered more with less trips or truck drives, and this is in the end, it's about profit. It's about they seeing that, okay, it makes sense to have these kind of systems in all of our tanks, so that we can be more profitable. And when we say into this, and let me take now the conversation to others, I can say, for instance, we know a company that has truck monitoring, but the system, so they made predictive maintenance. And this company, they analyze the data from the truck independently of if it is LPG or a bus or whatever it is. But they analyze this, they send it to their system, and they can predict when you should do maintenance. So what would be the optimal timing for you to do maintenance on any vehicle? So this would be applying to LPG on the fleet, on the LPG fleet, for instance, or on the cylinder deliver trucks. And this is just to give an example, or a smart meter, or a cylinder monitoring. I mean, there are probably thousands of examples, and smart valves. And I'm thinking on Pego Energy, and Fausto is here, and he'll be able to speak a bit about it, how they can, how actually they solve the problem in the region, but also creating a tracking system and making much more easy the life, both for the LPG distributors, but for the LPG adoption as well. And this is the kind of systems that we are looking into. IoT in LPG today, it might be, or used to be a lot more about logistics to increase the amount of sales and the operations. But more and more, it's moving into the business and how to increase market share, how to make the consumer happy, how we can make this a new marketing tool and increase the service or the customer retention. So this is some things that IoT can bring and will bring to the LPG industry. I'm pretty much sure of it. And now we would like to challenge you and to encourage you to share your success stories or your stories. Or if you don't have a story but you would like to have, how would you envision? I remember from the play, I forgot the name, the power play. The power play in the World LPG Forum. There was a group that said, because we challenged to see the future in 10 years, how do you see technology? And there was a group that talked about the drones delivering LPG. So you'd have LPG being delivered by drones. I think this is, I mean, it may have seemed absurd, but how many ideas we saw when we were kids that are realizing now? And so looking into the future, what should appear, how can we do it, what would be the best approach to the industry? Please share examples of what you are doing, what we have seen, what you'd like to see. It would be very important for us to populate in the WLPGA IoT report. And feel free, if you want to participate in the steering committee, feel free to reach out to David, so that you can be part of this group and help us to make this industry safer and more efficient. So thank you for your time and attention. Let me open for questions. I don't know if I see any questions here. Okay.
Andre, we've got a hand up from Mr. Pandey from IOC. Can you unmute him?
I don't think he's connected with voice, because I tried to unmute it before.
Oh, okay. And then we have another hand up here, just below him. It's Camagillo Rudolph Mapulane. So you're unmuted now.
Afternoon, guys. You're speaking to Rudy. That's my name that I use.
Rudy. Okay. Thanks, Rudy.
Yes, Rudy. Yeah, I'm calling in from South Africa. So
welcome.
Yes, thank you guys. Such a great presentation. These are the things that are keeping some of us going in our businesses. I'm currently I'm a founder of a startup company called Shisi Gas. Right? What we do, we are creating a delivery system for gas cylinders, because we realized that in South Africa the LPG market is hindered, or it's not growing, because of the whole safety stereotypes that gas is not safe, and we get a lot of people or a lot of gas dealers complaining about cross-filling, that you get to buy cylinders and you find another dealer uses your cylinders to fill his gas and trade his gas, instead of you having your assets work for you. So we're trying to create a system whereby it will enclose or to make it easier and safer for LPG dealers to trade without cross-filling, and we trying to leave out the illegal fillers into the market. So my question to you guys is that, now that a country like South Africa, they are very reluctant on LPG usage, and the market here is not growing because of what I have mentioned, safety stereotypes. How are you guys, as LPG, the World LPG Association, how are you willing to bring incentives to such countries so that they can easily adopt the LPG usage, as opposed to other fossil fuels like coal-generated electricity?
Thanks. Really good question. And let me just say, on behalf of the World LPG Association, first of all, last year we produced a report, and we called it a policy document. And the report was directed at those countries where LPG was either not used at all, or very, very little use was being experienced. And the report focused on, actually the conclusions of the report, it focused on 10 things that country must do in order to encourage a safe and sustainable LPG business environment. And I haven't got the report in front of me, but I can tell you the very, very one, the thing at the very top and the one underneath it, the first thing was to create a roadmap for LPG in that country that includes all the stakeholders that have an interest in not just energy policy, but health, environment, transport, and also the players that are looking to enter the market. What sort of infrastructure are we going to have? What sort of distribution network are we going to have? So that was the first thing: develop a roadmap for LPG. The second thing is to ensure that there are no bad practices, because that will put anybody off anybody who's got an idea about investing in a country, if they see illegal filling, if they see cylinders being stolen, they're not going to come. So that has to be sorted out. Now, Mauricio Jarofsky is on the list tonight. Mauricio heads up the WLPGA. He's the chair of the WLPGA standards goal. And underneath that goal, there's a lot of activity that the WLPGA is doing. It's creating and publishing guides and guidelines for good industry practice. It's also running workshops, Rudy. And it sounds as though we should probably come to South Africa and run a good industry practice workshop. We did one about 4 years ago with your association, with Kevin Robertson. But we could certainly come down and do a repeat. Because I know you have an annual event every year. You have an annual conference. I think it's around, was it around May or June? That might be a good idea to do something like that down there then. But separately, what I'll do, I'll send you the document. In fact, if anybody else is interested, then just let me know, and we can include it in the information that we send out after this event. So that will be my reaction. I don't know, Andre, whether you've got any thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Andre, is Andre going to?
Yes. Sorry, I was on mute. David, I think you summarized it pretty well. I was just actually going to send a question back to Camajalo. If you have seen any IoT examples of these kind of technologies, the connected devices in your region, on your companies, on your customers. So can you share some thoughts on that one?
Okay. What we do, we discovered there's this company in America actually. If I'm not mistaken, Michigan. They have an ultrasonic sensor that they can be used on cylinders, right?
So Mopeka, right?
Yes, Mopeka.
Yeah.
Yes, those. Yeah, that's an excellent device. However, we want to take it up a notch. We're creating a delivery system which can be able to run on a digital platform. Right? So with that, we realized that if we create a digital platform that can enclose the whole LPG operation, it will eliminate illegal fillers. It will put the end users at the comfort zone or the comfortable zone, knowing that whoever is trading with them is accredited because they will be belonging to a certain digital platform. So
okay.
At the moment, we're just facing challenges because we're a startup. So we might need some support from people who have been in the market for a long time and people who are willing to come and assist us actually roll this out and put it out there in the world.
Okay, Camajalo, thank you for sharing. Very good input on the Mopeka. Yeah, we discussed it briefly in the morning as well. Yeah, but it is a very good example of an IoT device that can help the industry, and I'm pretty much sure that a lot of them on the cylinder monitoring is going to arrive. David, I'm pushing here. I'm looking at Lucas Ribeiro. Okay, you unmuted already?
Yes, I've just unmuted Lucas. Lucas, you have your hand up.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on what part of the world you are. My name is Lucas Abeyta. I work for Implico. We are headquartered in Germany, but we have offices in the US, Kuala Lumpur, and Bucharest as well. And so we are a company that we provide terminal management solutions, replenishment solutions, and so on. So we do not supply any sort of sensors or supervisory systems, but instead we connect to these systems to automate processes. And we have a few successful business cases on automatic replenishment. So what we do is we basically connect to the equipment, to the ATGs, to the tank readers, and to the point of sales, also inventory and transactions. And we have a artificial intelligence algorithm that calculates based on the history of the sales and the calendar and events and so on, and on the level, and can forecast up to 10 days when is the best moment for delivering and how big that order should be. And not only that, but align the must go with can go and associate different locations in the same region. So these we have been doing for over a decade now, and we have very interesting, successful cases all over the globe. We also have the solution both inside SAP and outside SAP as a standalone solution that can be integrated with any system. So if you're interested in hearing more about our successful cases and how we do it and so on, I'll drop my contact on the comments box here, and you can contact me and we can discuss more. Is that okay?
That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Lucas, for sharing. I mean, we will be contacting, because if you can share that content in the cases that you have, and that you can we can include it in the report, it would be amazing. And again, IoT, it's not necessarily only the devices that connected; it's also the platforms that receive the data and transform it into information. So, having this kind of IA, machine learning algorithms, or artificial intelligence, to transform the data, I mean, that's obviously a very good use of data generated, and it's definitely part of IoT. So you're very welcome to share your success stories so that we can include them. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks for the space.
Yeah, thanks, Lucas. Thank you. And looking down the list, Andre,
I can see Abdur Hama with a raised hand,
and Ricardo also. So
yeah, let me unmute Abdur. So okay. Abdur, are you there? Hello?
Maybe not there.
Okay, I don't think so.
No. Down a little bit, we have Ricardo. I saw Ricardo's hand up. So unmute Ricardo. Can I unmute Ricardo? I can't. So Ricardo, if you can hear us, we can't unmute you. Maybe you're not on the microphone, but if you have a question, please type it in, and then we'll pick it up.
Okay, it's unmuted now, I believe so.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. Hi, David. How are you?
Oh, good. Thanks. Good. Thanks.
I undressed since 2 hours ago. Okay. I have several use cases that I really like to share with all the audience here. Okay, we are talking in cylinder monitoring regarding tank monitoring. I think this industry also need to look at other kind of systems that cannot just bring data to the cloud and share the data and manipulate the data in the cloud, but also control some parts of the chain value. Okay, I'm talking about perhaps in smart metering and smart metering with shut-off valves that are a very interesting use case. I'm talking about remote actuated valves, authorized refilling using smart valves and smart filling. I don't remember the name in English of the term. Filling valves that are smart, that can recognize that the truck driver is able or not to fill up that tank. I think we have so many use cases that we need to put in a medium long term for being discussed in IoT. I think thematics like blockchain in industry also could be a very good fit for this industry. I think the main goal of these webinars is to do this, to share this kind of use cases that can be applicable. The Mopeka use case, it's a very interesting one because we'll not give you just the level of the cylinders, but they can also give you localization of cylinders, traceability. I think we have so many use cases that we can have in this industry, and the work that David and Andreas are being doing is so good that we need just to put this in several more use cases. I give you the challenges also to look to demand response regarding this topic, because in parts of the world like UK, that is an island, it's a very good use case for IoT also to bring some new challenges. I just want to give these 4 or 5 new use cases that can be put in report. That will be very nice to have there.
Thank you, Ricardo. I mean, definitely. Thank you for the contributions. I'm particularly, challenged by the demand response. So having the possibility to predict the consumption, and for islands like UK that sometimes, especially in the winter, have issues being filled, and how can these kind of systems solve the entire nation problem? I mean, this is very, very interesting. And thank you for sharing that, the idea. And it took on smart valves, and I'm going to be a bit pushy, but I think I can. Talking about smart valves, I'm going to unmute and to ask Fausto to come in and speak a bit about smart valves, as you have a good use case. Thank you, Ricardo, for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. I guess the first thing to clarify is we're in the smart metering category. The solution encompasses a valve, a regulator, and a flow meter. So terminology is the first piece. But in terms of, what everyone else has been discussing, we've been working in Nairobi, Kenya for the best part of 3 years now, developing a cylinder monitoring system to be able to measure the flow of gas as it flows out of the cylinder, to charge customers in micro quantities using mobile money technology, which is very prevalent here in Kenya. And through this journey of building several smart meters, we've discovered that there's a whole opportunity in terms of cylinder fleet management to do a lot of the things that the members talked about previously. So know when a cylinder is running out, trend customer consumption, and predict when to come and exchange that cylinder. With our smart meter, we store the actual account balance on the meter. So when we go and collect a cylinder before someone has run out, the customer doesn't have to worry about losing a bit of gas, because their credit is stored on the meter. So we're able to be much more efficient in terms of our truck collections and deliveries. And we also don't lose cylinders because we're coming to the home and collecting them before they run out of gas. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about. It's been a very exciting development for us, but I'll stop right there because I'm sure it opens up a lot of questions and we could go down a rabbit hole.
Okay, Fausto, thank you so much. I know that you are part of the group, so thank you for that as well. And definitely this success case and what you are doing, it's definitely be there, because I think it's a really, really good case of how it does not change, and does not change only the technology side. It's also on the supply side, and more it takes LPG to maybe places that it could not be there before. So thank you, and congratulations on the idea and project.
Yeah, Fausto.
I know. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for that. Actually, this morning when we had the earlier webinar, I did talk a little bit about what you were doing, and I actually mentioned 2 things that really I think jump out of this project as far as I'm concerned. And the first one is that the way in which you gather the data, you were telling me that you can actually almost tell not just when somebody is cooking, but you can almost tell what they're cooking by the rate of gas that they're using, which was really scary. I mean, you were almost inside the kitchen of the consumer. That was the first thing. And then the second thing was that the cost of using LPG per household per week is something like half the cost of what they were using, what they were spending on charcoal, which sort of blows the myth that LPG is more expensive than traditional fuels. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of wasted energy when you're using charcoal. You light the fire for the lunch, and then you keep that fire sustained through the afternoon and the evening for dinner. And there's a lot of wasted energy and unnecessary pollution. So in actual dollars per family, per energy type, LPG actually is cheaper than traditional fuels. And that is a very powerful statement to make when you're talking to governments who have a large population using traditional fuels. So thanks for that, and I'll let somebody else jump in now. I'm sure there are other questions for you.
So yeah, I'm seeing that Mr. Pandey from Indian Oil. So we try to unmute. Let me try to unmute again. That maybe there was something. So Mr. Pandey, I'm unmuting. We can't hear you. I don't know if you are muted on your side. We cannot hear. Hello, Mr. Pandey.
No, he did say he was having problems with getting his voice through. I don't know why that is, but it's a pity, because I know that IoC is using IoT. Indian Oil Corporation is using IoT in a very interesting way, because Mr. Pandey showcased some of that work at the Global Technology Conference in Houston, and he will also be also talking about an update of that work in New Delhi when we have our regional meeting there at the beginning of February. So we look forward to hearing the update then.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
it's a pity, but
I see NASA has also raised her hand. Hello, NASA.
Hi, Andre and David. Thank you so much. This is great. I have a quick question, Andre. You mentioned security as a concern.
Correct.
How does the user remain in control of the data? How?
So it really depends on the implementation. I can give you for a hint. So we are in Portugal, so we are here a little bit on GDPR, which is a kind of restrictive data protection policy that is being enforced in Europe. And so you cannot have any data in your system that can uniquely identify the user. So either you can do anonymization of the names, or you can do we cannot have in the system any data that can correlate the user, and also this is mandatory by Europe law, and also in terms of deleting. So if a customer requires that his data is deleted, you have to be assured that you can delete it from everywhere, with no trace with no that it is not traceable.
Yes.
And so this is just an idea. For instance, the data that is being sent from the device to the platform, and this applies to ISA, but also to other companies like IoT or like Silicon and other companies that do the same as us. We have a security connection between so from the endpoint to our platform, ensuring that even if you capture the communication, you won't be able to decipher it. So David was saying that with Fausto, you can know by what the persons are cooking just for the gas consumption. So in the end, if you don't gather this data, you might be able to identify if someone is at home or not, and so that cannot fall into. And so protecting that communication, it's also very important, and that is being done by now. But it's a new topic for IoT, because devices typically they did not need this kind of security, but now it's a major point, and it's being taken obviously very seriously. So it's good to see that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, NASA. In fact, in the Power Play session we had in Houston, security was one of the things that came out on top of the list as well. So it sort of validated what you were saying earlier, Andre. I think people are concerned, and in a way, this is funny, because in a way, we found this year with this little working group that although everybody was really keen to get involved in the IoT report, when it came to actually sharing what the companies were doing, they were a little bit reluctant to step forward, and this is always going to be a dilemma, because there's going to be intellectual property sharing is something that we've got to be obviously very, very careful about commercially. So what we're hoping is that we do get some examples, and we will certainly make them generic. We won't be putting people's brand names in the front.
Correct.
This is very much sharing of ideas, not necessarily sharing of commercial opportunities. So we don't want to do that. So that's a very, very important point to make.
So let me. I see Fausto has raised his hand. Fausto.
Oh, sorry. Just wanted to share, yeah, on the
security.
On the security piece, yeah, being able to estimate people's meals. Kenya itself has adopted a GDPR data policy as well. So, and even myself with my system at home, I fall under GDPR. So we have to think about how to delete customer data when they don't want it, and also that interplay of we're trying to reduce the cost of delivering gas to end users. But we need to be mindful that that data is only being used for the delivery of gas. So selling that data to, say, Unilever for them to market shampoo or other products would be problematic. So there's some things that need to be worked out for sure. And we love these opportunities with the WLPG to figure out what makes sense for the industry.
Fully agree, Fausto. Thank you for sharing. David, any comment?
No, I'm just looking to see. We still have Abdurrahman's hand up. I don't know whether I've just taken it down. Let me see if I can't get him unmuted. So okay.
Yeah.
So
I see John as well, and Fausto. Anybody else wants to share? So I see Nasa. Let me unmute Nasa. Nasa, hi.
Sorry, this is another security question.
No worries.
Is there a risk of hacking the data and then this data is used in a bad way?
Yes, I mean that is one of the security points that is being more. So for LPG, what would be the concern? The problem is, for instance, hacking into a system like a smart meter or a tank monitoring or a truck routing and provide wrong information. So change the values that they should be transmitting. You see, and that you'd have you would have wrong information, assuming that you had correct information. So not in LPG business, but in other IoT applications, that there were already some reports of some mass control of the devices. And that's something that definitely nobody wants it to happen. So that's why the security piece is coming, very strongly, in a way to prevent that such of these things happen.
Okay, and do you have algorithms in place for that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I was talking about security between the endpoint and the platform, and this is a very normal approach for nowadays technology developers for the company. So typically today, the development, not only by ISA, but generally, and I'm pretty much that Faustus, for instance, also does the same. And it is the communication between the device and the platform is encrypted. So it has a security key. And even if you can try to access to it or the communication, or if you want to change it, or if you want to access the device, it will be very hard. It's always impossible to say that it is 100% secure. I don't think even Google it's 100% secure, or Facebook, for instance. But everything that you can do at the moment that we are doing, I think that the industry or the product developers in the industry are looking into it. And security is one of those things that you have to. You just don't develop it. You need to update it, because tomorrow it's going to be a way to go around the system, and you need to shut that door again. So it is, I would say, a continuous job on the security side.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Nasa.
Andre, Abdurrahman has sent a question through. He's obviously having trouble getting the microphone to work, but Abdurrahman is with Unitex, which is a Bangladesh company, one of the fastest growing countries in the world for LPG at the moment. And you can see his question is regarding integration of RFID and SAP and oil gas deliverers and so on with IoT. And there's another question about speed and bandwidth. I know we talked about in the report, we talk about almost having a heat map of where the coverage is, for example, I mean, I'm just a simple guy here. I understand what 3G and 4G is. So if you go into a country, what sort of coverage will you get for that sort of network, for example, we talked about. But do you want to answer his question, Andre?
Sure. Yes. So regarding RFID, so autogas delivery and SAP applications with IoT, starting by first one, RFID. So there are a few systems, and I can remember there are a few systems that have RFID on the cylinders, for instance, or on devices, or on not cages, but pallets to transport things, where you can include a chip with RFID, and when it passes a gateway, it communicates that, okay, this device A passes through the gateway X, and communicates automatically to a place saying that, okay, it's inside the warehouse or it's outside the warehouse. So there are huge amounts of applications for RFID. I can think of Cylinder, for instance, and there are companies already. I'm forgetting here the name, but there are companies that are already doing this kind of having this kind of solutions. On the SAP, so SAP, it's a ERP software, which stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. SAP by itself, it's kind of a huge monster. It's a big thing, but typically all these systems, if you want, they can connect to SAP. So SAP directly does not have communication to or is not related in IoT, but in a broader way, all the informations typically reach out to SAP, and that's typically how big companies, LPG retailers, this is in the industry, or other companies, that's where they tend to concentrate all the data, independently of if it is handwritten or hand manually inputs, or if it is sent by smart devices. And the autogas delivery, it's being managed. So the gas stations, not necessarily autogas, but I would say gas stations. Gas stations have a huge control. You can have sensors in the shelves, and this is on the retail side, not necessarily on LPG, but gas stations, they have a sensor on shelves to understand what products are being more consumed in store. They have sensors to know what kind of gas it's being out more, the level of the gas and oil tanks and diesel, if they have, for instance, just to remind, if you have a car wash inside the gas station, it also can be monitored to understand exactly what's happening and how you can improve to save water, for instance, to minimize the detergent. So there are huge applications for the autogas, well, the gas stations in general, and all the applications. I would say that if you think of something, likeliness to be applicable to IoT, it's very, very high. So nobody thought of that. Toothbrush, for instance, it can know exactly how you brush the teeth. Bottles are smart bottles. I mean, just imagine things, and you can imagine a way that they can connect to provide you information. Hopefully, it is useful. So on the internet speed and bandwidth, typically all these kind of devices, they require a low speed and low bandwidth. That's why new network protocols are arising. New network technologies. On the telecommunication sides, you can probably heard of Sigfox, LoRa, NB-IoT, which stands for Narrowband IoT, LTE Cat-M1, which is LTE, but it's different from the LTE that your mobile phone uses. And so all these low bandwidth requirements are bringing into new telecommunications networks that actually they don't need so much bandwidth, so which means that the devices will consume less power. So it's a low power wide area network. You see, it's very, very interesting to see how the IoT needs are modifying, for instance, the telecommunications networks. I hope I answered, Abdur, to your question. I can see that we have a few other questions, and
Yeah, let me, Andre, let me jump in quickly
Go
with
ahead.
Abdul's question. And you mentioned RFID companies, and you couldn't remember any. There's one lady that was going to join us today from the US, and she lives in
Trovan.
California. Yeah, Trovan, that's right.
Yeah, now that I remember it exactly.
Barbara Mason,
Exactly.
she sent me an email. She said, I'd love to join you, but do you realize that it's 5 o'clock in the morning when we started this, which was about an hour ago. So she said that's the first thing. The second thing is, did you forget that it was Thanksgiving Day in America today? And unfortunately, we did. Thanksgiving Day didn't appear on my calendar at all. So apologies to all our American colleagues for timing this webinar on Thanksgiving Day. And unfortunately, Barbara can't be present on the call because I did say to her, well, perhaps she could join the last half an hour if she gets up in the morning for a coffee at 6 o'clock. But I don't think she's joined. So, but I can put you in touch with her, Abdur, if you wanted to get in touch with somebody on RFID. And then we've got some more questions, Andre, below.
Yeah, so Arnaud Penet asking, hello, what kind of protocol are already used for IoT and LPG, physical and software layer? Is there a standard or mainstream for that? So, I mean, IoT, it's really a really broad term. It's really wide. So it can go from the protocol on the communication, I just named a few, to the protocol on the software layer, on the application layer, which you tend to use. So there are many. I mean, there is a huge mesh. You can have all kinds of protocols being delivered, and we have seen that in the industry, not only on this one but also on this one. So RFID, for instance, on the physical layer, or NB-IoT, or satellite communications. We also have seen that. And on the software, typically you have applications. You have mobile applications. You have cloud applications. We have seen it all. The idea is to find a way to make a device or something, an endpoint, to be able to communicate and gather that information and transform it into information. I would say that it's like this. Regarding standards, there are no standards available on the IoT specifically for the communication. Hopefully, it will come. Not necessarily for LPG, dedicated for LPG, but most likely, a new language for IoT. We are early in the beginning of this technology era, I would say. The same applies for blockchain, as Ricardo was saying. So we are very early in the game. Just like for the computers and internet when they arise in the 1980s, it will come. So I'm pretty much sure that the standard language or communication will appear. And there are already at least 6 entities that are working on a standardization, but we don't have either a standard or a standard de facto. So definitely it will be it will come, but there is nothing today. David, any comment?
No, that's pretty well covered. Arno's followed up with another question a little bit lower down there about wireless technology already in use.
So regarding, is wireless technology already used to monitor LPG tanks and collect data through a gateway? Yes, I mean, I would say that on the LPG tank, and I can speak about that a bit deeper. So the first tank monitors that rise 20 years ago, they were connected to a landline, like to the fixed phone. Then they started to do wireless using the network of the customer. So it is available today. It's not what you see more often because you are depending and relying on a wireless network, which sometimes you can change it, you can go down. So it's not the most reliable, even though it's kind of cheaper. Then it moved into SMS, 2G, 3G. Now we are also SATCOM, satellite communications. Today we see that most of the communications on the tank monitoring and other kind of monitoring, it's going for the 5G, which is the narrowband IoT and LTE, Cat M1, Sigfox, LoRa, and this kind of networks. So this is typically the technology for the communications. Wireless, it's used in a few places, but it's more and more going down, especially also because the cost of the communications on the SMS and the data communications are so low that depending on a wireless network, it's just not just does not pay off anymore. That is what we have been seeing. Arnaud, so if you have any other questions, just feel free to talk. Then we have a question by Elizabeth Muchiri on the challenges of IoT on LPG. I would like to add a seventh challenge, which is the nature of products, especially in small packages for domestic level, where slight changes in temperature affect actual quantities flowing despite similar flow rates. Maybe Fausto can comment on this. So let me put Fausto on. Let me find Fausto. Here he is. Fausto, you there?
Yeah, no, this is a great question that we've worked 2 years to solve. First of all, on the standards, there are actually standards for smart meters. We conform to EU standards for domestic smart meters, normally for natural gas. But we think that a lot of those standards are going to translate for new meters that will go on mobile gas cylinders. They also include communication protocols as well. In terms of the measurement and the changes in temperature, yeah, this varies hugely. One, within the cylinder, as you use the gas, everyone knows that the temperature of the gas drops. But also, two, in the context we're dealing with, a lot of customers have homes that are essentially encased in metal, both sides and even roofs. So you get a huge temperature fluctuation even throughout the day. Normally, if you've got pipe gas in Europe or in other places of the world, you'll get a bill at the end of the month, and the gas company will compensate based on the average temperature for the month. It's not an exact science. The newer smart metering technology has temperature sensor and it has compensation for temperature. So we have to compensate, one, for the ambient temperature, but two, also for the temperature of the gas in the flow channel as it's coming out. There's also a need to adjust your dynamic algorithm as you're measuring, depending on the level of the gas in the cylinder and the pressure, and also the propane-butane mix. So there's a lot of back and forth and iterating on calibrating these sensors, which has a lot of time and effort and development, because we're selling gas essentially at 1 gram level. But the opposite side of that is, once you've done this, you're actually able to measure the propane-butane mix within the cylinder itself as the fluid is flowing. So if you get, for example, a batch of gas from your supplier and you're not sure whether or not they adulterated it with another mixture, these sensors, once fully calibrated, will be able to tell you if something's off, if you're not within the range you were expecting. So pluses and minuses, as with any new technology development, a lot of work and a lot of hours in the lab, but it's exciting what you can do with these sensors.
Thank you, Fausto, for the feedback. And it's I saw that you took a couple of years, is it, to develop this algorithm to compensate automatically this temperature fluctuations. So
yeah, we've been working with a sensor company in Zurich, in Switzerland. They have labs where they were able to get propane butane mixes from 0 to 100, and then do all sorts of calibration. All this was already done for natural gas, but we had to come for propane and butane, so that was adding far new dimensions to existing sensing technology.
Thank you, Fausto. Let me try and mute again Jay Pandey. Let me see if we can talk with him.
I think he's self-muted.
No, he's I think he's not on now. I see the green mic. Pandey, Mr. Pandey, are you there?
Yeah, hello everybody.
Oh, finally,
good.
thank you. Nice to hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, finally I can get through.
Thank you. Any thoughts to share on the IoT and the applications?
Yeah, I was just trying to share that what we have done, like in my presentation in Houston also, already for the vehicle tracking across India, our cylinder trucks and bulk LPG tankers, we have installed vehicle tracking system, and it is clubbed with GeoRTD, so we know exactly where the vehicle is moving, and this is tightly integrated to our ERP SAP, so we know all the times where the vehicle is, whether it has reached our distributor or it is coming to plant, up to how much time we can expect its arrival at a LPG location, so that we can plan the production. This is a part of vehicle solution which is out of our LPG plants. Then we have plans for implementation of IoT for our security solutions, integrated security systems, where we'll be knowing which of our access control devices like turnstiles or biometric readers or boom barriers are working or malfunctioning. So all the data will be on cloud live. We can see across India. Suppose you can assume something like 1200 units of access control, which of them are down. So the equipment itself is speaking and telling us with the auto diagnostic feature that this system has failed, and then there is escalation metrics where the service engineer of the access control system can report to that location. Similarly, we have applications like all our tanks inside LPG location. They can send the data directly to cloud, and we can all the time know when is a dry out situation coming in one location, so that we can mobilize the bulk LPG to that location. And then there are huge lot of applications which we have envisaged, like predictive maintenance for LPG pumps and compressors using IoT sensors. So there are vibration sensors which can be provided, and whatever vibration analysis is required for centrifugal pumps, that can throw data and tell us in advance when the bearing is expected to fail or other malfunctioning expected. Then we have lux level monitoring for our lighting solutions, because our guidelines specify a minimum lux level across LPG locations when we are operating. So in the night, if the plant is operating and the light falls below a standard lux level, say 80 lux, then an alternate light should be switched on so that it provides a proper working environment for workmen. So there are a lot of solutions we are getting from IoT vendors, technology providers, and in a phased manner we are implementing.
Yeah, Mr. Pandey, I think we're really looking forward to hearing an update on where you are in New Delhi in February. But in the meantime, I think what we'd like is for you to give us a very brief synopsis of what you've described, so that we can include these examples in the IoT report, because this is exactly what we want. We want examples of what's being done at the moment, so that people can pick up the report and read it and say, I didn't know that, or I can do that, or that's given me an idea to do something else. So that's what we would really like.
Yeah. So I'll be sending a brief write-up what we have envisaged, what we have done till now, and what we plan to do in next another say 6 months. So there are a couple of examples that will be I'll be sending to you as a write-up, and that can be included in the report.
Thank you very much. And Andre, we're running out of time. I think we're almost up, in fact. But I see Neil Ormrod's been sitting there on his hands saying nothing at all, but he's actually said something on the question. And it makes a very good point. I mean, I'm going to unmute Neil so he can say something. But Neil's technology that he's talking about is not the future technology. He's talking about existing stuff that we do and how it can be applied with the new IoT system. So Neil, just a couple of words on what you're doing and how it links with what the IoT space is offering.
Yeah, well, the IoT thing is a very, very technical side to the business, isn't it? We're down at the rock face, looking at the old style of things, where we've always done automatic changeovers for many, many years. The company I work for has sold over 10 million of these, and about must be 10 or 15 years ago, they added a cable to it so it could be used with remote telemetry, and so this has been going on now for quite some time. Excuse my voice, I've just come out of hospital and I've got a problem with my voice at the moment.
No, we can hear you loud and clear.
Right, and these various systems have been used. I've heard about already, we've been talking on here about people just hardwiring them into phone systems and SMS. Well, we're selling ours at the moment where it can be used with the Silicon Controls gas log system, with the ISA system, with Sensile's Netrix system, with the AUIT system. So it's a changeover with a cable that will work then with all the various flashy systems and all the way through to the various back office systems that are available. But it is something which, you know, we talk about the IoT system, and we talk about Sigfox and LoRa and all this, and I just wanted to put over the point that at the bottom end of it, you know, where it all connects up to the LPG side, there are already products available and working in this system. And I can send one or two case studies into you very shortly, just on the standard stuff that we're doing at the moment. But we are also looking at, it's also going to be working with the Sigfox and the LoRa operations as well.
Neil, thanks. Can you do that? Because, I mean, this is a great example of the old school meeting the new school and the interface. So I think we could certainly find a space for that in the report.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting on my hands, but the main reason being because I wanted to learn more. I keep on hearing about IoT, and we hear about blockchains. Perhaps somebody can explain to me blockchains next. But I now understand a lot more about IoT, so this was an extremely useful session for me to sit in and listen to.
Well, that's great to hear. Great to hear, Neil. And I can give you an assurance that we won't be running any webinars on blockchain anytime soon. I can assure you.
Maybe we can. Well, let's see. Let's see. I think it's coming, that the blockchain. Let me just put something regarding what Neil said, which is the auto changeover. I mean, absolutely. We know. I know I2 and other auto changeovers. I mean, quite well. And that is a very good example of the endpoint that makes part of the IoT. So that would be the last mile. It would be a device that, you know, makes the auto changeover, and when they connect it to the wires, so it's capable to connect to something that transmits the data. So that's the endpoint. I mean, and that's part. I would say the first mile, and probably one of the most important, to actually be able to send the data to send data so that it can be analyzed and it can, you know, have some action on top of it. So thank you very much, Neil, for sharing that with us.
All right, I think we're out of time. So all I'd like to do is thank everybody that's participated. I think we had at one stage nearly 40 people online, and that's tremendous. And we had probably I have to say, much more interaction. I'll say this evening, because it's 10:30 where I am in the evening. I think compared to the earlier one we did, this was, I wouldn't say what it was the better of the two. It was the better of the two. So congratulations to you all, and thanks on behalf of WLPGA, and also thank you, Andre, for your contribution.
My pleasure.
And I think maybe we should plan on doing something like this again, but I'll leave that to everybody online. If you want to send a bit of feedback in, we can probably repeat this. Now we know how to work the webinar system, we can probably repeat this sometime in the early part of the next year.
Definitely. Thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you all for having the time and making the time to be with us. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you all, everybody. Thank you. And good night from me.